Welcome, everybody, to the Ogden Way, a podcast where we talk about Ogden. We talk about the stories of Ogden by telling the stories of Ogden's people. And today, we're joined by someone who doesn't live in Ogden, but has come and visited Ogden and is bringing a breadth and a wealth of experience and background in the topic of sustainability. But we're going to talk about it in a way that we hope makes sense and helps resonate with more people, all people, and in a way that makes it more human and more essential to human life.
Great.
Right?
Thanks.
So we're here today with Bill Reed. Bill, welcome to Ogden. Thanks for everything you're doing, the message that you're sharing. Your message resonated so much with me today up at Weber State at the Sustainability Conference, and resonated with my entire staff. I had 15 people there that really span the spectrum of political ideology. And the words that you shared, the way you frame and discuss sustainability resonated with everybody.
Remarkable, actually.
It is remarkable, right? And that's why I asked you to be here. So thanks for taking me up on this.
Love it. Thanks.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Great to be here.
So when we talk about the Ogden Way, we talk about a framework for everybody to participate and contribute into our community. And you and I have talked about it a little bit. It's an ethos and a spirit that drives our city. It's also a mission for the 700 employees and a vision for our 90,000 community members. But it also lays out 7 fundamental pillars for human success. And those pillars are the things that everybody needs. They represent everything that everybody needs in order to have a successful and fulfilling life here in Ogden. And that's what frames the work that we do here.
So tick them off for me, would you?
So yeah, absolutely. So safety. You have to have a safe community, whether it's public safety or safe from environmental intoxicants, for example, right? Education, access to education, not just K through 12, but what about continued education for workforce development and making sure that you are prepared for opportunities to participate in the workforce, right? Infrastructure. You have to have safe and stable and strong infrastructure that delivers efficiently and safely the things that we need, including roads, sidewalks, connects us as people. Access to an economy. An economy is something that it is the number one way for leveling up in life in terms of wealth, but we have to have an economy that works for everybody, regardless of where you are, right? And then we talk about healthy and active lifestyles, and that can include parks, recreation, open space, etc. But also, how do we recreate within those spaces? Recreate with each other, youth recreation, mountain biking in our mountains, etc.
Recreate,
right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think the most important piece of the Ogden Way, and really what I think that your work focuses on, is having meaningful connections with one another, meaningful social connections with each other. And that's something that we at the city really, I think that's where we can really thrive as a community of people, is when we have meaningful social connections with each other. And I think that's the thing that's often forgotten because we're so focused at the project scale.
Yeah.
Right?
And I would add, for what purpose do we have meaningful social connections? They don't just exist for themselves. To have that developed, people need to feel a common purpose to begin to bring them together.
Correct. And you often find that common purpose when you are together, right? It's almost like a circular feedback, isn't it?
Yep.
And so we find that we are a really welcoming community. We're a really diverse community. And when we bring our people together, you find a lot of commonality, right?
Almost always.
Almost always, if you give each other that kind of a chance.
Give some space for it and invite it.
Right. And that's the essence of becoming a community to me. And so when you talk about sustainability, you talk in terms of community, in terms of the whole system, the whole, not the one.
Yeah. What I talk about is how do we sustain life? So sustainability is this abstract term. I don't know if you want me to jump in here.
Please do. Yeah.
So sustainability is kind of an abstract term. What does it mean? It means all sorts of different things to people. And the real question is, what are we sustaining? We're not sustaining green buildings. We're not sustaining particular political positions. What we're talking about is how do we sustain life? And life, the stuff out there, the soil, the worms, the critters, the trees, the animals, they contribute. They can do more than contribute. They are the reason we have oxygen and fish and food and beauty. It's what gives us, what helps us thrive in life is the beauty of life, and without that, we cease to exist. So what we're sustaining with sustainability is life. Then the question is how do we work most effectively with life and not ignore it, which is really what we're doing right now. The reason why I'm in this business is because we basically ignored life, and we extract from it, we abuse it, and we don't allow it to thrive. It thrives, we thrive.
So when you say life, what about our lives?
It's part of it's, and here it's a whole system. When we talk about life, we mean all living entities. We don't separate humans from nature. When we talk about place, we talk about each place being unique, a unique living organism. And we say, and people think about place as being this table of soil that we live in, or dirt that we live in. Place is all the energies of life, the social structures, the habitat, the hydrological structure, the geology, the economy, all those, the consciousness, the spirit, all of those things that are part of our lives make up the quality of place. So when we use the term place, we mean the whole system of life. The question is how do we become part of that again? Because we've removed ourselves from it as a culture. We say humans and nature. No other culture does that. Western culture separates humans from nature.
Right.
So that's an indicator of a problem.
Mm-hmm. Our
work is about bringing that back into coherence.
Okay. So when you and I have talked at the conference today, I shared with you that, to me, when we talk about the system starts with us as human beings, and that
we're the activators.
We are the activators, but also how do we work within the system to help us and provide for us and support and sustain us, right? Is that a fair way to think about sustainability?
About how do we say that again?
How do we, like, when I talk about the Ogden Way, it always starts with people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so all of our policy approach and the framework, and really the political message I shared to get to the seat was about investing in people. And the question is, how do you invest in people? You put everything that begins with people. So if we're looking at what do we want to build in our environment, what infrastructure do we need, what kind of economy do we want to build, what kind of access to open space? The question for me is, well, what do people need in order to thrive?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
And so
that's a big question. What do people need in order to thrive?
Right.
Is it just money?
No, it's
Probably
not just
not.
money.
No, it isn't.
Money is part of the...
Absolutely.
But it's a bigger system than that, isn't it?
Yeah. So what gives us quality of life is the question.
Yep.
And I don't know how many of us would agree that quality of life is a bunch of big box stores on a boulevard. I don't think that's quality of life. It is a life.
Right.
But I think I bet you every listener here, when we go talk about going on vacation or holiday, we're not talking about going to Walmart.
Right.
We're talking about getting out of here and spending it in nature. Nature is ultimately what we long for. It's why we vacation in nature. And so, as one of my clients says, nature is the last luxury. It is rare now. So, if that's what we value, why don't we bring it into our communities?
Right.
And there's the opportunity. So how do we make our communities a place to vacation? That's what I want in my community.
Well, you might be surprised. We are actually a tourism destination.
No.
We have world-class skiing. We also have world-class people and world-class community. And I spent 23 years in nature, actually.
Yeah.
And when I was in that world and in that work, we called it natural resource management. That's not very different than environmental.
Same thing.
Sustainability.
Same thing.
It's not, right?
Yeah.
We use different terms and we kind of look at it differently, but we're not really that different. We're stewards of our environment around us, right?
Yep.
And here as the mayor, I'm trying to be a steward of the environment of the entire city that provides, and we really do summarize it this way. We say we need to create an environment that allows people to have access to opportunities to thrive. And it's the environment is a complex system of all of those pillars. Right?
Yeah, and that's just it, is that how do you work on all of this at the same time? Because what we do in our culture is we say, well, now I'm going to focus on nature, or I'm going to focus on jobs, or I'm going to focus on housing. We have to focus on all of it. So
That's
how do you
right.
focus on all of it? Because our society is kind of hardwired for reductionism, dividing everything into smaller and smaller pieces so it's manageable uniformity. And that's how we're destroying the quality of life in our communities. What makes Ogden unique versus Salt Lake versus Provo? If we don't understand that, because these places are living organisms, they're alive. We make it alive. The critters and the trees make it alive. And it's a unique organism. Just like in our gut, we have bacteria.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's alive too. And so, I mean, all these different critters make it an alive, dynamic system. And we've forgotten how to work with that. So what we do is we look for what makes each place on the planet unique. Because once we tap into that, you've tapped into what people care about. But we've forgotten that. We've genericized it. We've made it for the sake of economics, we've tried to replicate things like a machine. And we end up with, as James Kunstler says, a geography of nowhere. And so how do we bring back the uniqueness of each place? And I think that's what you're working on.
Right. Because if we try to create ourselves into something that's not us,
Not true.
that's not true, we're creating something that we aren't. And you said when you're in your talk today, you can't force nature.
Right.
I think is what you said.
Yeah.
Like we can't undo the physics of a river. We can only work with them.
And you
right?
can't do. Let's take a human being as a metaphor for our places. So with your children, you want to fan the flames of their uniqueness.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to make them generic. If your daughter wants to be a dancer, you want her to be a dancer. You don't want to force her into being a tennis pro because she's not going to be happy. She'll be on a psychologist's couch forever.
Right.
And at some point in our lives, there's a famous study done by, I think it was done by NASA in the 60s. I think they hired George Land to do this. And I'm going to butcher the numbers, but they're generally right. At 4 years old, by the criteria that they were measuring, 98% of people are geniuses. By the time they reach 6 years old, it goes down to 80%. By the time they reach 12 years old, it goes down to 40%. And to high school, 20%. And to college, 2%. So what we do is we beat the uniqueness of every individual out of them to become more like us. So you can get grades and you can get a job. It isn't until we're in our mid-30s or late 30s that we say, what am I missing? Right? This is what midlife crises are all about. I mean, take this as a premise, folks, but I think it's kind of interesting. Midlife crises are a result of us trying to find our essence. And then we spend the rest of if we're good, we spend the rest of our life looking for our essence, what's really important to us. Well, it's the same way with our communities. We genericize our communities. And right now, we find a hunger for people to saying, well, who am I in this place? Who is my community? Not what is my community, who is my community? And how do we fan those flames of uniqueness and potential? That's what will make our cities flourishing. That's what will give us quality of life, and that's what we long for.
I love how you say that because to me, that's an individual choice of my uniqueness and my essence, what I might call my purpose.
Yeah.
My why.
Yeah, your essence directs your purpose.
Yeah, and so in this job, I really feel like I'm actually aligned with my purpose. We talked on the way here about I'm not after fun, I'm after fulfillment. That's what what I'm feeling.
You
now.
figured that out after a while.
Yeah,
and you're doing it. You're stepping in. You're feeling whole. You're feeling real.
Yes, well, very much.
Same thing for communities.
Correct, and I want that for everybody that wants it for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And in that regard, they have to have the ownership and the accountability to step into their own greatness.
That's right, because who we are determines who the community is. I've used this morning. If I'm a jerk, we get things done by groups of people. We don't get things done as individuals in our culture. It takes a team. It takes a company.
Yep.
It takes an organization. It takes a church, whatever. So if I'm a jerk, I'm not going to be very effective in that team or that group. So I need to actually be developing, improving myself to have less jerkness, if you will. And that will allow, and if all of us are doing that, that means we're all striving to actually work on potential, work on
Correct.
flourishing.
Yep.
And then as an effective team, this is why organizational development exists in corporations, because we do need to learn how to work together. So part of this work is helping ourselves understand how to effectively work together in service of the larger system that we're part of, the system of life, Ogden, the mountains, this valley. That's what helps us develop quality of life.
In service is what you said.
In service.
In service, which is the fundamental value of Ogden. We are a service-oriented people. What we say is we are a city of service and a community of opportunity. We have a workforce of 700 employees, and we try to push a service mindset, an abundance mindset, not a scarcity mindset, that we are here to help serve and facilitate success for others.
Oh, I want to pick up with this facilitation idea.
Mm-hmm.
I was just reminded about this in this class that I was just teaching, that we did a project in Auckland, New Zealand with a community recycling center, 3,500 feet, a small little place where people would bring old goods to be repaired and recirculated into the community. And we did an integrated approach where we invited the community to actually understand how they could be in service to this mission. They all wanted to be. We had more people coming out of the woodwork because they wanted to help.
Mm-hmm.
So what the City of Auckland Council, which is their bureaucratic 2,000-person bureaucracy, they are overworked. They don't have the budget for what they need. Way too much to do. And they saw that because there's 17 community recycling centers in Auckland, they saw this one community recycling center took away all the work they thought they had to do. They realized, oh my goodness, we can help guide these folks to do what they're already wanting to do. It makes our work so much more effective to be leaders instead of managers, and to teach people how to actually be in service and to find out where people want to be in service, because that's what a community is all about. So I thought that was a pretty cool. So as a result, we were invited to actually teach the people in the Auckland Council how to work this way, because it makes their work go so much more easily by engaging the community in what they already want to do and say, no, it's our job. Don't bother. It's our job.
Man, you and I could talk for hours. I don't know if you're very interested in the conversation, but I really am.
Yeah.
Because you just said the city of Auckland. It's not that different than the city of Ogden in the sense that when we talk about the 7 pillars and the framework for contributing and participating in Ogden and finding a way for everybody to serve and to give and to help lift each other, I mean, that's what drives a community. But what we find is when you start to look at the work that the city's doing with the taxpayers' dollars, we cover some of those pillars. And when you start to set the table and you invite nonprofit partners and other anchor institutions like our school district and the county and the state and federal partners, et cetera, you find that they're actually working toward, and they exist in order to implement and execute on one mission. And they are already resourced from other dollars, not from the pockets of my people.
Yep.
And so I actually see opportunities here that we can remove ourselves from that service and engage with a partner that complements us and that's where we find organizational and community-wide alignment across the pillars.
Yep.
And saves our people money, which then can be saved for their economic benefit of their own.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. The problem is, if I could just jump in here, the problem is that we work in silos.
Right.
This is this fragmented approach. This is this reductionist approach that has been in our culture for at least 400 years. We're kind of hardwired for it now. This work is about breaking people out of their silos so they're actually talking with one another, not protecting their funding source or their egos.
Correct.
That's part of our development. Maybe my ego is a little too sensitive.
Yeah.
How do I grow up? So by actually helping people to put people together around common purpose, this larger purpose, what is Ogden's unique role? Because Ogden has a unique role to play in this valley. What is that? I don't know what that is, but it'd be good to find out. Ecologically, socially, politically, economically,
right?
Has a unique role to play. I don't know what it is, but it's unique because it's different than Salt Lake.
But the uniqueness is different. Okay, so you talked about silos.
Yeah.
Each one of my pillars could be a silo.
It could be, and it should not be.
Correct. Which is why if we don't look at the whole system of all the pillars that contribute to human success and creating an environment for people to have access to opportunities, if we're not doing all of those and we're doing them in concert with each other and we're mindful of what one another are doing, and where are we investing our resources toward executing on our mission? Is it helping people Is it helping to build the environment for success?
Those
right?
pillars are sitting on a foundation, and that foundation is this unified look at how life works.
Right.
So by inviting people to interact and exchange and creating opportunities for people to learn from each other, you find out, and I love this, was an example from one of our projects where somebody said, wait a minute, I didn't know you were working on that. We're kind of working on that too.
Exactly.
But in a different way. Maybe we should collaborate. Now, that's when you're
Right.
off to the races.
That's what I mean by setting the table.
Yeah.
So we have 800 nonprofits or so in this county area. And what we find is that there are nonprofits and government and even private enterprise that are doing the same things.
Yeah.
Okay. And so
fighting for different pots of money.
which then creates a scarcity
That's right.
mindset.
And an
so,
ego mindset.
right. So when I'm talking about setting the table, what I'm talking about is bringing those partners in and saying, what are you doing with your mission and your work? Right. And is that at odds with one another?
Right.
And can you take this part and you take that part in order to execute for this pillar for our people?
But to do that, I shouldn't say but, and to do that effectively, everybody needs to be aligned around this larger purpose that we're working towards. And that's understanding this unique essence of Ogden. And how do we support that?
Right.
And I don't have an answer for that.
So you keep driving me to answer that, and I can give you the answer for each one of those pillars.
Yeah, but
if you said environment, our uniqueness is our proximity to the mountains that are behind us,
Fair
the
enough.
two rivers that run through and converge into the confluence in our city.
I'm talking about something even deeper than that.
Okay.
This essence that actually all those pillars are in service to. And that becomes this cohering role that Ogden can play. And that will actually help motivate people to say, now I know what I'm working towards. Not just what they're working towards, but what we're working towards.
Okay. So I think the essence and the uniqueness of Ogden is us.
Well,
I think so.
That's true. Who is us? And there's a reason you live here.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? There's a reason you stay here. So it is us, but it helps to name it. Because naming it.
I came here and I stay here because I feel like I'm a part of it.
Okay.
I've never been to a place where I feel like I get to contribute to the future and the beauty of a place.
Okay.
I have a sense of place here that I've never had anywhere else before.
Okay. So let's identify that sense of place.
Okay.
Name it. And I don't think we're going to do it here, but I think we can, but it actually takes some work.
Yeah.
But if you can identify that sense of place that resonates with 98% of the people, you're off to the races.
Right.
And that would help then cohere those pillars. I'm just expressing the way we work in community. So
Right.
I'm not trying to tell you how to do your job.
But part of the challenge is I can answer that question for myself. And that's an important question for the mayor to answer on behalf of the people that I represent that put me here. But I also want to represent what they want and what they need and what makes this place special to them, right?
Yep.
And that's actually kind of how the pillars came about. Is those are all of the things that people are relying on in our city that they love about this place, that they want to see us invest in. But at the same time, they're saying, don't spend more of my money to do it.
You don't necessarily have to spend
No, we
money.
don't. We really don't, because we have so many partners here that are begging to participate.
Yeah.
Begging to.
Wonderful.
And so I have a responsibility to lead and orchestrate to make sure that we're not wasting space or wasting resources, tripping over each other and competing with each other. Right?
Yeah. Well, you're on the right track as far as we're concerned, because what we do when we work with communities, and we work all around the world, it's the same way in every city we've ever worked in, is that people are in these silos, don't communicate with each other, don't understand, and as a result, they battle.
Right.
As opposed to saying, how can I help? And how can I support what you're doing so you can support what I'm doing? Not so, but just it's a natural occurrence. And when developers hire us, there's typically a lot of enmity in the community against the development, and we try to find out, well, what does the developer and all the stakeholders in the community, or at least the stakeholders that have a voice, what are they all saying? And we find out that when we get down to the core issues of what they really care about, it's the same for everybody. But it's getting to that core that takes some time. not a lot of time, a month or two.
Mm.
But once you find that, people start. Then we find is that you need to bring people around a table to learn from each other, and it takes about a year at the pace of community development, like a meeting every month or every 6 weeks, for people to say, to realize that maybe we're working on the same thing.
Right.
Now, how do we support each other? And that's good governance.
So when you describe it that way, isn't that essentially what our indigenous ancestors were doing when they were here?
Yeah.
Is they were working together as a community, working within the landscape, using it in a way that helps them, but in a sustainable way that provides for them again.
Because they understood how the landscape worked.
They understand they're part of a system.
Yeah, and they understood how this system worked. They've observed it, and they observe it. And it's not that hard, but we've removed ourselves from that.
We have.
I was a story of a very, very wealthy family in New Jersey who hired us, and I explained to them about how the northeastern native peoples burned the forest every year in the spring and the fall to actually increase the productivity of the plants and the diversity of the ecosystem, to renew. And one of the daughters, one of this guy's sisters said, well, how did they figure out? How did they know that? And the son, who has 2 Learjets in his garage and that kind of wealth, said, I knew that when I was 8 years old. Oh, you did not, brothers, sisters. So he said, no, seriously, we had the lower 40 acres out of our hayfield burn one year, and we had the best crops for the next 3 years. He said, and if a guy with a silver spoon in his mouth can figure that out after one couple years, you can bet native peoples were paying really close attention.
Right.
That's all we need to do these days. And what a great thing to pay attention.
To pay attention.
Yeah.
Really, what I think you're explaining is, we have kind of divorced ourselves of that, and we've divorced ourselves of our connectivity with each other, right?
Oh, yeah. We live in our cars and our...
Yeah.
When do we interact?
We've walled ourselves off, and we talk to each other through our phones and in these social media platforms instead of talking to each other.
Yeah, we've removed ourselves from life, and we're going to pay the price.
Right. And it's really, we're taking away fulfillment, the essence of our existence in this world.
Why do we work anyway to go? What's that old, you've probably heard this story, many people have, the fisherman standing on the beach and a Harvard MBA coming along and saying, I could actually help you fishermen unite and develop a business. And so this guy is observing the sunset and just relaxing at the end of the day, and they go through all sorts of machinations. He sets up a business, and the guy's so busy doing all the kind of stuff that unnecessary that he says, why am I doing this? So you can sit on the beach and look at the sunset. He said, I was doing that before. So I've told the story poorly, but what's the purpose? Why are we actually working? To work? To do what? Well, why don't we bring that quality of life that we want to experience when we retire into our communities? We can.
Absolutely.
We don't need to go anywhere. Right now we do, because it's frankly not a very pleasant environment that we've created. So it's time to change that. Long past time to change that.
Long past time. One of the things that we talk about, my CAO, Mara Brown, you met her today, earlier when I introduced you to my team at the conference. She's a really thoughtful person, and she and I always reflect on how Ogden is a perfect size of a city. It's interesting. We're big enough to be considered kind of a big city here in this area. We're not a big city compared to Boston or LA or New York, whatever.
Right.
But for this area, we're the big city. But we're small enough that we know a lot of each other here.
Yeah.
Right?
I can sense that.
Yeah. So we're pretty well resourced as a big city, but we're small enough that we care about each other a lot. And we don't just care for the sense of caring. We care because we know who we are. We know each other as neighbors and friends and people that we worship with, et cetera, and go to school with. And they're people that we live with. We're raising our families with. You know what I mean?
Yep.
There's just this really strong sense of community here, and it's a strong sense of belonging. And I think it's a competitive advantage that we have.
There you go. Now you're beginning to touch on some uniqueness, right?
Right. And people feel it when they're here. Mm-hmm. And the more you're here, the more you live it. Yeah. You don't just feel it, you live it.
I've been here a day and I feel that. So
that That might be the happiest I've felt all day long is when you said that, and I've been happy all day. But to hear you say that you feel it in a day means that we're sharing with you our true sense of who we are.
Mm-hmm.
We're being ourselves.
Yeah.
We are an authentic city,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that is the start of an environment where people have opportunities to thrive,
Yeah,
and be their best selves.
And what does that mean to then live into that premise and promise?
I think it means something different for everybody.
Oh,
I think that's for themselves to define.
It does, and yet, yes, it does. And what is their particular unique role in supporting that uniqueness of Ogden?
Yeah. Do you want to know my opinion?
Yeah.
I think they have a responsibility and a role to take ownership for themselves, to own their own circumstances, and to put in their own work to make sure that they step into their own greatness and are achieving their success, however they define it. And I think that we have a responsibility to each other to make sure that as we're doing the work to lift ourselves, that we are looking to the side and helping to lift others around us.
Right. And providing the armature to support that.
Sorry?
Providing the armature to support that development.
Mm-hmm.
So by development, I don't mean real estate development. I mean
Correct.
human development.
Right.
Because we all have to grow up. That sounds arrogant, but we've forgotten so much. Our culture has allowed us to forget so much. We aren't part of the environment anymore. We don't pay attention to it. I'm not going to speak for the hunters and the fishermen and the farmers, but all of us have somehow abstracted this. And if we're not taking care, from our particular standpoint, I don't use the term sustainability much anymore, but I do use the term to regenerate relationship, to rebirth. Our company's called Regenesis, so rebirth. And how do we rebirth this energy and care that we have kind of outsourced to they'll take care of it. They're the politicians, they'll take care of it. No, the politicians are here to help us organize ourselves, but they're not here to do it.
Correct.
And we need government. We need governance.
Governance.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And we also need to, as Kennedy said, what's your role, basically.
Yeah.
I can't quote him, but, what have you done for your country kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's the opportunity. The role of a politician and the council and the staff is to help support the community to help itself.
Getting back to what I said earlier, that it's our role with a service mindset and our mission for our 700 staff to facilitate success for people, for other people, for each other, and for everyone else that lives here.
How do we invite that change to happen? I think we actually need to inspire people to fall in love with life again. And I think that just telling people to do that isn't enough. I think we actually have to create the scenario of living into, well, how does life want to work here? What can we do? What are small steps that move us? What's the end state, the outcome, this North Star that we really want to see for this place? And then what are the steps to get there? And actually spelling that out and showing that there's a way to get there is what leadership, I think, needs to do.
Okay, so you can't just say, Bill, fall in love with life.
Yeah.
Will you?
Yeah.
Like, hurry up. You got until the end of the day.
Right.
Fall in love with life again. It doesn't work that way. That's like saying, hey, Bill, have faith in Christ.
Yeah.
Have faith in the Creator.
Okay.
Yeah, by the end of the day.
Right.
It doesn't work that way. It's a journey. It's a process. It's unique to yourself, right?
That's right.
Well, so is stepping into your own greatness and taking responsibility for what your greatness is, having a vision and a dream for yourself, and living in a place where you feel like you can become that.
Yeah.
Okay. And so to me, the Ogden Way is rooted in a paradigm shift of a lot of cities. We sort of degenerate ourselves by building the hardness first. We build the structure and we think that we're developing and redeveloping.
Right.
But we're really just building buildings, and we're building stucco and concrete and asphalt.
You're avoiding the issue.
Correct. But if we build people and we create energy within ourselves and each other, and then we are the people that build the structures that they need in order to be our best. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah.
And so development and stepping into our own greatness as a community starts with our people. It doesn't start with our buildings.
That's right.
And so when we talk about it, but we have to put this into structures like a general plan. right? Because we're a city that has to operate under different governance. We have to bring governance.
Well, you need guidance.
We need guidance, and we need policies and guiding documents around these things. And so that's where those plans come together, and we build the physical environment. Or when people want to step into their greatness, we have the physical environment plan for
armature.
Right, that's the armature. And so I have to think, for people listening to you and I talk, they're like, okay, these guys are enjoying each other's company, but how does this relate to sustainability? Because they're thinking about sustainability the way I was when I went to this conference this morning.
So how were you so describe that?
I was thinking about it in a way that I was defensive.
Mm.
I'm a politician, right? I don't like to refer to myself as that. I'm a man, I'm a father, I'm a husband.
Yeah. You're in politics, though.
But I'm in politics, so I'm a politician. I was expecting a lot of political rhetoric. I was expecting partisanship that doesn't align with my own party, my own political viewpoints.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat and introduced you. I welcomed everybody to Ogden, and then I introduced you. And I didn't hear that at all from you. I actually heard a message around us, a message around people and community. And that was the message about sustainability. And I was like, that is a priority for me.
Yeah. Well,
Right?
how do we sustain life? It isn't building buildings. It isn't building green buildings, although that helps. How do we sustain life is that we learn to sustain each other.
Right.
And the living systems, as people have a tripping hazard over that, but life that supports us, life that makes the water clean, life that makes the air clean, life that gives us fish and ducks and elk.
Right.
That's the stuff that creates our quality of life and that actually sustains us. That's what sustainability means, is not technology, not photovoltaic panels, not LEED buildings, although they all help, but is what we're sustaining with sustainability is life. And we're life.
Yes, we are.
So let's get with the program. It's all connected.
See?
It's not disconnected.
So have you ever gone to, you travel the world and you
Yeah.
give guest lectures,
Mm-hmm.
and you work with cities, you're a consultant as well.
Right.
Have you ever found a city or a community that speaks in the same vernacular that you do around these things?
That's a good question.
Because I really feel like that's the only difference between the message you shared this morning and the message that I share here every day, is the way we talk about it.
Well, I think you talk about it very uniquely, that's for sure. Not in the way that I typically see. So kudos to you for that.
Thank you.
And the most famous city in the world that lived into this is Curitiba, Brazil. That city that's 50 years old now. And Jamie Lerner, the planner, then he became mayor, and then he became governor because of the work that he did to bring people together to support life in that place. Now, it's since gone downhill because of leadership that didn't understand that. But if you read about Curitiba, Curitiba, that's the poster child for this work. And I'm not going to blow smoke here, but I think that you're working on that. I think you have the fact that you're so resonant to that and the way you're structuring your pillars and the conversation we're having indicates to me that, yeah,
we're kind of headed there, right? We're onto something here.
You're onto something, and I would love to stay tuned and follow the progress.
Well, thank you. Please do, and I actually hope you come back to Ogden again, and we continue the discussion and we talk about our progress. And because when we talk about sustainability, we should be talking about regeneration.
That's right. You can't have a sustainable condition without regenerating life and regenerating our relationship with each other and life.
Right.
So this is about human-to-human relationship and human-to-nature relationship. How do we co-evolve? Meaning, how do we co-develop? How do we improve life for ourselves, for others, and for the living systems that support us? That's what co-evolution means.
Right.
And so when we talk about development, we mean how do we actually continue to grow? Now that's what gives us, that's what motivates us, that's what excites us generally in life, not sitting on the couch, drinking a beer, watching the ball game. I mean, that's nice too.
I mean, it's March Madness. I might do it just for a minute, you know?
For sure. Okay. Absolutely. But my point is that you don't just vegetate there.
Right.
That when we really are thriving is when we're offering. So giving
Serving.
and serving, giving is what we're naturally attuned to.
That's right. So what you just explained are universal human values.
They are.
Those are things that we should all agree on, that neither political party has the answer to.
No.
Right?
Nope.
Frankly, neither political party has any answers to
Has
that.
many answers.
Right?
Right.
And so, yet I arrived at the sustainability conference with a bias, an admitted bias,
Mm-hmm.
because of my world experience and my role, that I'm standing in a room of people, many of whom, frankly, and I know this for a fact, are looking at me and saying, this guy doesn't support sustainability.
Mm. Mm.
But then when we actually break down what it ought to mean to all of us, I very much am. I have structured my entire vision and framework for my tenure here as mayor around sustainability, frankly.
Sounds that way to me.
Right?
Yep, I would say so.
And so can we as a community leave behind and suspend our biases long enough to listen?
Drop the words or be
Right?
very precise in what you mean by those words. Because sustainability, as it's defined right now, is not sustainability.
Right.
When you hear the term, just to make that ground that point, when you hear the term sustainable buildings, there's no such thing. No building can sustain life. That's what we're talking about with sustainability, is sustaining life, not more buildings. Now, buildings that have a tendency towards that we call green buildings, but not sustainable buildings. So our language has actually distorted our
Right.
understanding of what this word is. I think sustainability is a perfectly good term, but it's been so abused and
Correct.
banalized that we've lost meaning. So no wonder people aren't excited about it. You mean I'm going to die more slowly? I mean, Bill McDonough's famous expression is sustainability is a slower way to die. Why would anybody be motivated by that? Now, they may not understand that on the surface, but subliminally, people say, well, this isn't the way it's talked about. It doesn't make sense to me.
Mm.
And I think the reason why this movement hasn't taken off is because we're using wrong terminology and wrong understanding, meaning sustaining buildings doesn't make sense. Regenerative buildings don't. There's no such thing. What we're doing is regenerating our relationships and life. And so I think that's what you're about.
That is what I'm about.
Sounds pretty good to me.
I don't
Call
know.
it you can call it Fred. It doesn't matter. Call it whatever you want to call it, but don't call it sustainability anymore because it ain't.
Beautiful. And if we as a community can do that, I think we have a lot better chance of actually recreating the connections with each other and regenerating our lives together.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that we're using the wrong terms as much as we're just allowing other people to wrongly define them for us.
I think that's right.
And then we latch on to them, and then now we're wrongly using the wrong terms. You know?
Or we're upset by those terms and don't do anything.
Yes.
So, from my perspective, from the limited perspective of knowing you, I think that it would be super helpful to have this kind of deepening understanding of the essence, the intrinsic nature, the patterns of life that are unique to this place. How does life work here? What's the process of life? Every place has a different process. That process serves a purpose. Every place adds value to the larger system it's part of in a unique way. So what's the purpose of Ogden? And therefore, what unique value does it offer the world? If you can help define that, you can actually then structure. It just gives some coherence to what you're doing. Is it necessary? No. Does it help?
Yes. Right. Well, you know what else helped? You coming to Ogden.
Well, delighted.
And you know what else helps? Is when we suspend our beliefs and we give each other a chance to listen.
Well,
to understand.
You know,
right?
I mentioned Tyson Yunkaporta, who's an Australian Aborigine and PhD as well. He talks about 4 criteria in working with community: respect, connect, reflect, and then direct. What we do in the West is we direct. We tell people how great we are, what kind of great plans we're doing, or master plans. Then people are angry because that isn't what we thought we were getting. And so then we have to take years to reflect with one another. Well, what really went on here? What did we do? Where did we screw up? Then through that process, we connect with each other, saying, oh, now I understand what you're talking about. I didn't even listen before, but now I'm understanding. So we connect, and then we respect. Because now I understand. Well, that took 5 years and a lot of lawyers and a lot of money. Why not just start with respect first and then connect to understand and then reflect? What are we learning from each other? And then you direct. Is that too much? I mean, I hear this all, well, it takes too much time. No, it doesn't. It takes a lot less time because you avoid the lawyers. No offense, lawyers, but you get in the way. Lawyers, and we let our egos get in the way, and also the impulse to win. I want to win. I'm in charge. I'm in power. So get rid of your damn ego and start learning to care and love and understand one another, and learn from each other. We human beings are smart critters. We just don't give ourselves the chance to express that.
Right.
So go for it.
Go for it, right?
Yep.
So I love to win. But as I've gotten older, I've learned that winning is not winning, meaning someone else loses.
That's a power trip. That's a zero-sum game.
Correct. That is a zero-sum thinking. That is a reductionist mindset. We are after an abundance mindset. Winning means we all win, meaning we all thrive and succeed together.
And right? I talked about the law of three this morning. You know, it sounds kind of abstract, but we live in a world of duality: right, wrong, Republicans, Democrats, heart, mind, quantity, quality,
good,
science,
evil,
religion, right? Good.
Yeah.
And we think that, well, it's a battle. And then the best we think we can do is compromise. And so compromise, we think, is the height of political sophistication. Compromise is death. We compromise, then we compromise again, then we compromise again, and we drive ourselves right into the ground. Nature doesn't work that way. Nature is a model for us. Nature actually harmonizes, it reconciles. As long as you understand that death is part of life, because we all die, birth, life, death, rebirth, the systems of life actually harmonize. And we have never seen that fail in 30 years of practice, where if you give people the time to sit down, get to know each other, what's at the core, what's at the essence of this activating force? I want to build a building. What's at the core of the restraining force? NIMBYism. Well, why? Let's get to the core, because there's a deeper reason than just this ideology that we promote. If you do that and take the time to do that, you will find out that we're aligned around so much.
So much.
So get rid of duality and right and wrong and winning and losing and try to actually find harmony. And it sounds so idealistic, I know, but it really works.
It really works.
Yeah.
And it's the Ogden Way, frankly.
Well,
it's what we're after. It's what makes life worth living. It's what makes life fulfilling, right? And so, Bill Reed, thanks for coming to Ogden. Thanks for coming to Weber State.
Yeah, delighted.
Thanks for sharing your message this morning as the keynote speaker. And thanks for sitting at a table of community leaders over lunch and breaking down partisan barriers with us to talk about the essence of us. Mm. That's such an impactful thing that you've done today.
Oh, thank you very much.
And I hope that the viewers and listeners are picking up some of what we're talking about. This conversation is not over, but it's also not just a conversation between me and Bill. This is a conversation between all of us. So we end every episode with a call to action.
Yeah, what's that going to be?
Well, I think that for everybody here in Ogden who's listening and watching our conversation, let's make our call to action giving each other the grace to suspend our bias and our belief.
Good.
To give each other a chance. Right?
It's a great word, grace.
Grace. Mm-hmm. Offer grace and get grace back.
Yeah.
So that we can actually listen to each other and understand each other. And when we do, 99 times out of 100, we are going to find so much unity.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. And care.
And care and kindness. And all of the people at lunch today, I think I might have been the only Republican at the table, frankly.
I don't think so.
No?
No.
There might have been maybe a one or two. Mm-hmm. Okay. But at the end of that lunch, no one cared.
No.
Right?
Doesn't matter.
It didn't matter because we're talking about contributing to the essence of who we are.
Right.
And those are human values, human relations, human connection.
Right.
And Ogden's the kind of place that you get to do that. So that is the Ogden way. So
sounds great to me.
Thanks for being here, Bill.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for sticking with us today. If you want to learn more, go to YouTube, search Bill Reed, and you're going to see all kinds of lectures. And he shares this stuff openly.
Yep.
Excitingly. He wants people to learn and to listen. So get out there, learn more, be more, live the Ogden way.